Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the end of the semester. Uh, First off, the semester ends on Friday the 16th at 5 p.m. I cannot accept any work, nothing whatsoever, after 5 p.m. on Friday. Please listen to me once again. I cannot accept any work at all after 5 p.m. on Friday. This is in the syllabus. Okay? I also cannot accept anything emailed to me. There's a link on Canvas for your capstone project. Please upload the paper and the works cited, make it all one file, and upload that one file to that link. Okay? Don't email it to me. Please don't send it any other way. Please don't try to send two files. Copy and paste your works cited or your reference page onto the end of your paper and send it to me that way by Friday at 5 p.m. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm going to be hanging around to advise in terms of your works cited pages and your in-text citations or your references and your in-text stuff if you're using APA. First off, last week or a couple of weeks ago when you did the annotated bibliography, the idea was that you would use that to best advantage to get the sources for your capstone project. And then you'd annotate those by writing a paragraph of summary. So I sent those back to you. Those of you who did it, I sent it back to you with some comments and suggestions on it for cleaning it up. You need to get that stuff right, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if you used it that way, then the sources on your annotated bib, if you're using them in your capstone project, they can be the same thing. You just don't put the annotations. You take those paragraphs of summary out, but if you got the formatting right, you can just copy and paste those into your works cited page. Before we go any further, let me say to you that I find this just as tedious and every bit as boring as you do. I've been teaching this shit for 20 years. I'm tired of it. And I don't care about the commas and the periods and stuff like that. That's not what's important. What is important is that you develop the discipline and the courage to get it right. And you prove to me that you have the discipline by getting it right. It's not rocket science here. It doesn't require a great leap of intellect to figure out. I show you that I have the discipline to get it right by getting it right. So I am going to be fairly strict about this, not because the stuff in and of itself matters, but because the discipline and integrity of getting it right matters a great deal, and matter even more in this day and age than maybe ever before in the history of this nation, that we have people of integrity and courage who are going to get it right because that's what it takes. The flip side, the alternative to that is that if I am bored to death by something, which I am by this stuff, quite frankly, to fail to get it right simply because I happen to be bored with it is never a good strategy. It's never a strategy to win. It's always a strategy to lose. In the larger scheme of things, no one cares that I find this boring. But people will care if I show evidence of discipline and integrity and getting it right, or if I don't. That's what people will care about. No one cares about my personal idiosyncratic like or dislike of this stuff, and I don't like it any better than you do. So I made the suggestions that I thought would help for those of you who did it, and I'll be hanging out in this chat room to try to advise and help as best I can. I'm not going to, frankly, spend a lot of time this week. I've got another batch of papers yet to grade, and then I've got your capstones to grade. By the way, while I'm talking about the capstones, let me tell you how I'm going to grade those. The assignment sheet tells you, but I'm going to slam through these things. There simply is no time left, and I wish I had time to go through and make comments and suggestions for improvement and how to and try to help you and things like that. But the semester's over. There's no time left for that, and you've either got it or you haven't got it by now. So I'm going to slam through these really quickly. I'm hoping to get them done in a day so that I can get grades in, sometime fairly shortly after the 16th, because I'm heading to Vegas for the holidays, and I don't want anything hanging over me there. So some of you still not paying attention to details. The MLA formatting is new, and there's a supplement that I sent out to you. Your handbook is not yet updated, but I sent you out a supplement earlier in the term. It's in the site somewhere. You can also use the Purdue OWL website, and there are various other places to help you get the new MLA 2016 formatting right. It's not that different. It's mostly they've just replaced periods with commas, and there's this new concept that they've made up for themselves of containers, which makes not a lot of sense to me, but that's what they're calling it. I sent you out a little worksheet the other day. Feel free to print that out, as many copies as you need, and use that if you like, and I'll try to help you. But I want you to try to get it right. You're adults and you have integrity, so get it right, or at least make a real try. Don't not do it simply because it's boring. I totally get that it's boring, totally understand, 100% agree. That does not absolve us of the obligation to get it right when that's what's called for, and that's what's called for in this case. So I want to talk about two things really quickly. Again, frankly, this should be stuff you learned in English 1A. This shouldn't even be a question, but I'm still noticing that some people are still confused about it. So I'm looking at page 156 in your handbook, and here is what the page looks like. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's called Works Cited, and the title is Centered in the Middle of the Page. Not over here to one side, but centered in the middle of the page. Okay, that's for MLA formatting. If you're using APA formatting, it's the same thing, but it's going to say references rather than Works Cited. You notice number 2, everything is double spaced. And please listen carefully. Here's the way you do this. No matter what you've done, no matter what it looks like to begin with, select it and hit Control 2. That will double space it. At the same time that you've got it selected, make sure that it's in the same font that you're using for the rest of your paper. There's nothing more amateurish looking than to get a paper in one font and a works cited in another font that's just obviously just stuck on there. So make it the same font, double space it, and then if you can see the second and following lines of each entry, it's indented 1 tab. Here's how you do that. Please pay careful attention. Select it all and hit Control T, the letter T as in Tom. Control T, that'll give you that hanging indent so that the first line is flush left and every other line is indented 1 tab. The final thing is the thing that sticks out here to this margin should be someone's name, not some unsigned source by somebody who you don't even know who it is and you can't verify whether it's credible or not. Don't use those sources. These are just as easy to get to. This name should stick out to the left, and when I'm flipping now to page 150 in this sample, no, that's not right, sorry. Hold on 1 second. Well, yeah, 150 is fine. It's the picture with Harry Truman on it. You can see down shortly under that there's the name McCullough and the number 711 in parentheses. And here's the point. That word McCullough, that name has got to match with something that is on this Works Cited page. So everything that's on the Works Cited page, everything that sticks out against this margin has got to be referenced by that exact word in the body of the paper. And everything that's referenced in the body of the paper, every name that's in parentheses, absolutely must be on this Works Cited page. It's got to be a 100% match. And that's the first thing I'm going to check, and that's easy to do. So if you don't get that stuff right, you're a sitting duck. You're playing to lose, not playing to win. So play to win, get it right. Absolutely, everything on your Works Cited page must be cited in your paper by either a parenthetical citation, which you learned about in English 1A, or by setting it up so that you mention the name, as I showed you in the Frankenstein essay lecture. The name must be mentioned in the paper, and that must match exactly what's on the Works Cited page. So nothing on the Works Cited page that isn't cited in the paper, nothing cited in the paper that isn't on the Works Cited page. 100% match. Nothing in the paper that isn't on the Works Cited, nothing on the Works Cited that isn't in the paper, and that's easy to check. I just control find, and I find out if you have a citation on your Works Cited page and it's not cited in your paper, then it doesn't go on your Works Cited page. That's what the word cite or citation means. For some reason, that's plain old common sense, but for some reason people tend to have some difficulty remembering that sometimes. So I like to try to remind my students. And finally, in terms of the credibility of sources, I gave you a handout last week, that explained the credibility of some sources. But again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a matter of common sense. You know that if you read some anonymous blog online somewhere, you know that's not credible. You don't know who that person is. You don't know what their qualifications, if any, are. And you have no way of verifying whether that's a credible source. You know that is not a credible source. You don't need me to tell you. The brains that God gave you can tell you that. Okay. On the other hand, you know that some professor at a big research university who's an expert in your field, who's been studying that field for 40 years and has been doing writing and exploring in that field for 40 years, and who has his name attached to the work, and whose academic qualifications are listed there, that is a credible source. You know this. You don't need me to guess. And then you know that somewhere in between the anonymous blog of some guy just spouting his cockamamie opinion without even the courage of signing his name to it, and the university professor who's an absolute expert in the world in your field, there's a range of credible sources between those. The more they are toward the academic professor, the more they're signed, the more they're in respectable publications, the more they're peer-reviewed, the more credible they are. The more they're hanging out in space with no name attached to them and no way to verify whether they're credible, the less credible they are, until they're finally some idiotic guy's opinion who's probably sitting babbling to himself in the corner. Okay? So I don't want to give the impression of being overly anal about this, and I don't want you to get the impression that this is driven by some abstract set of rules that nobody knows anything about. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is common sense. You can figure it out. You know what a credible source is. You know what a credible source isn't. And if you can't absolutely decide, of course you can ask me, but if you can't absolutely decide, we'll think, is it more likely to be credible or is it less likely to be credible? If it's less likely to be credible, get rid of it and find another source. None of this is intellectually challenging. It's hard sometimes Although I would submit to you that with EBSCOhost on the online databases, it's just as easy to get to the good stuff as it is to settle for the junk. It takes a few keystrokes one way or the other to get to either a piece of crap or a piece of credible evidence. And then you're importing the very best you can find is what you're importing into your paper. Not a bunch of junk, but the best sources and data you can find to support your argument. Remember, this paper is in support of your argument. You are in control of what goes in this paper, not the sources. You're in control. So the sources don't run the paper, you run the paper. And in the process of engaging with these people who know more than we do about our topics, our own minds grow and our own abilities to understand grow. So I'm going to be in this discussion. Be honest with you, I'm not going to be in here a lot because I got a lot of finals to grade this week. But I'll pop in, for a while once a day and spend as much time I can. If there's something that you're just puzzled about, and you really can't figure it out after you've tried and talked to some of your colleagues and tried to figure it out, then if you want to ask me, I'm perfectly delighted to help. But, if you ask me, and here again I'm being honest, if you ask me if some anonymous blog on some website controlled by some commercial interest, some advertiser and some blog on that advertiser's website that doesn't even have a name attached to it, if you ask me if that's a credible source, you're going to get a smart-ass answer from me because you know that's not a credible source. You don't need to ask me, you know. So, be scholars and play to win. So I'll see you in the discussion off and on. Just remember, the entire thing shuts down at 5 o'clock on Friday the 16th. And you will not be able to upload anything else. And if you email me anything, I will ignore it. I just want to be sure that you understand that. So don't say, well, I know you said not to do this, but I'm doing it anyway, because that's probably going to get you a smart-ass answer too. Okay, so that's it. Again, anything that you want to discuss with me, any questions you have, I'm not going to be in the office this week because I'm going to be hanging out off and on the whole week in this chat. So I'm not going to have separate office hours, but I'll be, bopping around. Okay, I hope you all have a successful week, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday and get some rest and love on your peeps. Like I said, I'm heading for Vegas for a few days, and so I'll see you around. Bye-bye.